Hello, I'm John Klobuchar with InEight, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest webinar in our Collaborative Document Management series. Today's webinar is titled, Gain Better Control of Your Vendor Deliverables. Our presenter today is Daniel Guillaume, Product Delivery Consultant at InEight. Daniel has been implementing InEight Document on capital projects for the last 8 years. He was a key decision maker during the development of the vendor data module, leaning on his extensive experience implementing complex processes for clients within the oil and gas industry. At the conclusion of today's webinar, we'll give you an email address for you to pose questions. Also, today's webinar is being recorded and we'll be sending out a link to the video within the next week. Once again, we're glad you've joined us. Now let me introduce Daniel Guillaume, who will take it from here. Daniel?
Thank you, John. Now, what is vendor data and what is it all about? So vendor data management is typically a requirement on oil, gas, and chemical projects. It is required to manage the receipt and the review of deliverables expected from vendors for pieces of fabricated or custom equipment. Usually, those items, those pieces that we're purchasing are fabricated specifically for our project. So the review of specifications and ensuring that this is completed in a timely fashion so that the pieces can be delivered on time is imperative to reduce the costs on the project and to avoid schedule delays. The problem that a lot of companies face when managing vendor deliverables without a system in place is that it is a very labor-intensive task to manually keep this information up to date, and obviously that has its own inherent problems. I mean, constantly we find that there are delays when companies are reviewing documents, find that hard copies of documents are being lost on desks or being pushed aside for more critical work. And there's no way to properly track this without a proper system. Having vendors submit deliverables in any number of ways makes it really difficult to track the actual received date of those deliverables and have clear reporting on the current status of each of those items that we're expected to receive. So we believe that the vendor data management module provided within InEight Document is the best solution to the constant issues that are affecting OGC or oil, gas, and chemical projects today. The vendor data register provides a hierarchical breakdown of the contracts and the items that you are purchasing. It has a color coding system so that you can clearly see the current status of each of those expected deliverables and which ones are overdue. Our expediting view allows you to see the contracts that are approaching their due date or have become overdue so that they can be preemptively followed up and actioned rather than being reactionary on the project. The vendor data module also provides a standardized method for vendors to be able to submit deliverables, which can then be easily quality checked and updated as necessary before being processed and reviewed through a controlled review process. Now I'm going to switch and do a live product demonstration of our vendor data module. The vendor data module within InEight Document is a module that exists in that left-hand menu. I can see that we have a vendor data register and our holding area. Now the holding area is the place for you to conduct a quality check of vendor deliverables as they are received prior to them being processed, linked to a deliverable line item, and reviewed within the document register. The vendor data register is where we provide a hierarchical breakdown of our contracts. I can see each contract has its own contract number, the description that has been provided. I can also see the vendor company, the original, the current value of the contract, and the date that it has been awarded. I can also see this contract in more detail by double-clicking on the item and viewing the metadata associated to this contract. I can expand the contract to view the item that we're purchasing. I can also see the deliverable line items that are associated and that we're expecting to receive. I can see the color coding of these deliverable line items indicates whether an item is overdue, whether it has been approved, and whether it is currently in progress or under review. Each of these deliverable line items can have multiple documents associated to it, and I can see those document details here as well. I can see that these 3 documents are currently awaiting review. Once they've been reviewed and finalized and approved or rejected, that status will be updated here under the review status column. I can open a document to view the details of the document. And again, I can do this also for the deliverables, for the items, and also for the contract number, if needed to see more details. The vendor data register also provides the expediting view. Now, the expediting view allows us to, provides a management summary of our vendor data contracts with a summary of the details of the deliverables. So I can see how many deliverables exist against each of these contracts, how many of those are currently open. If we have any open or due in the next 30 days, I'll be able to see that here as well. And I can also see how many of these have been completed or are overdue. This expediting view allows us to expedite these contracts as necessary and be proactive rather than reactionary on the project. Now, the holding area is where we can process vendor deliverables as they are received. So I can see that I've received a number of vendor deliverables from one of our vendors. I'm just going to simply select one of these documents and process it through the system. Now, I can either update this document by rotating the PDF if it's been provided in a different orientation. I can also convert in a file to a PDF if necessary. Right now, I will just process the document. Now, the first thing I'll do when processing this document is I'm simply going to copy the document number that the vendor has provided to the vendor document number field. I'll then input my own document number according to my project practices. I'm also going to link this document to its relevant deliverable line item. I'll select the contract that it's related to, the item, and the deliverable that this achieves. It is possible for me to assign this document to multiple deliverables if it achieves multiple deliverables. In this case though, I'm just going to link it to this one deliverable line item. I'll do a validation just to make sure that I've populated all of the mandatory fields and filled out the information correctly. Now you'll see that it has provided me with an error, and I can see that my category field is actually mandatory. So I'll select this from the drop-down. Now when I process the documents, it'll also prompt me to apply a received date. Now I may have received these documents on a previous business day or even earlier in the week. So I'm going to select Thursday. Okay. Once the documents have been processed from the holding area, the documents are now under review within the review process within an InEight document. From our dashboard, I can use the review tools to activate the review and choose who the review team is. I'll now select the documents that I want to activate as part of the review, choose whether to use my default review workflow team or build a custom workflow team. Now the custom workflow team, I can choose my review initiator. In this case, I'll choose Joe Fredericks. I can also select which company I need my reviewers from. I'll choose Brian, Greg, and John from InEight. In sequence, I can provide a sequence order for my review team and assign a number of days that each of these reviewers should have to review the documents. Now, I don't want these documents, I can do a sequential review of this document where it goes from Brian to Greg and then to John, or I can do a hybrid review where we have multiple reviewers in a parallel review and then a single reviewer as that final reviewer. I could also do a fully parallel review where everyone reviews the document at the same time and can collaborate during the review process. I can list reviewers as optional, meaning that their review is not mandatory. I can also list out whether either of these reviewers may be sharing a role, and once either one of them reviews the documents, it'll simply move on in the review process. I can also view this visually so I can see the review process. I can see that Brian, Greg, and John are all listed as either reviewers. So once one of them completes their review, it'll simply move on to Joe for that final review and the approval. Now I'll click Save just to activate my review. On the dashboard, we also have a widget specifically for the vendor data module. So on the vendor data contractor view, I can see how many documents that we have approved and are awaiting return to the vendor. I can see how many contracts are available and how many have been awarded or how many of those are currently open. I can see the contracts based on the status. I can also see how many deliverables we have due in the next 30 days and how many of those are overdue. How many deliverables, we have that are overdue. I can click on any of these items on this dashboard widget and it will take me to those items in the register. So we can see that the vendor data module within InEight document allows us to easily expedite contracts and be proactive around those deliverables, ensuring that we are chasing those deliverables as they are approaching their due date rather than as they become overdue. But it also provides us that ability to be able to see those overdue deliverables and again, chase them as needed. You can also see that the review process that's built within an InEight document allows us to easily assign review teams based on their role or based on a set list. And it's also flexible in terms of being able to adjust those reviewers as they are moved around within the project teams. The reporting structure is very detailed, so we can easily see who is currently holding the documents for review and if there are any delays in the review process. Also, having that standardized way for vendors to be able to submit deliverables is extremely important in order for you to easily track the receipt of those deliverables and to be able to view the current status of those deliverable line items and ensure that the costs, liquidated damages, and the overall schedule of the project is not being delayed. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Daniel. To learn more about InEight and our collaborative document management software, visit InEight.com and click on the Request a Demo button. If you have any questions or comments, please email them to webinars@InEight.com. Again, that's webinars@InEight.com. Thank you for watching. This concludes our webinar.